represented to the system office. Thank you, sir. For the third time, we'll call the meeting to order then. And this is the working session, July 13, 2020. And as our normal procedure goes, wish to take a moment of silence. Next is the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right along with motion to adopt the agenda. So moved. Second. Motion was made by Brother Jerry, seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any discussion? All in favor? Votes 3-0. All opposed? 0. All right, the next item on the agenda is number 2, and that's communications, and I'm going to turn that over to our superintendent.
I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Cheek.
All right, well, I appreciate the opportunity. I wanted to come back tonight to give you all an update of the working session and talk through just a couple of things. What I'm going to do first is let you know where we're at on the middle school. In the middle school intercom system, the engineers have that design complete. We're just wrapping up what we call our quality assurance and quality control, just taking a look at the specs and everything there, and we will be ready to bid that. We'd like to come to the next board meeting and give you all an opportunity to make a motion to approve that project to go out to bid. So the intercom's in good shape. The doors and hardware. Last time we spoke, I talked to you all about being a little bit concerned about where the budget was. There were some things there that the contractor, Schiller Hardware, did not have included in their bid. And after they did their revised numbers and they came back to me, they said that they've got now all of that in the bid. And we coordinated with Brad Addy. Brad's been aware of what we're doing. We should be on track and we're still within budget. So we did not see a jump above that. Now we all know once we put it out on the street, this is going to go off a state price contract. There shouldn't be any changes. But I always, you just never know what's going to happen when they do submit that final number. So I've got everything written down of what the number's supposed to be. So we'll see how that comes in there. So that's ready to go as well, to go to KDE for approval so that we can go ahead and get that going. On the Camp Dick Robinson, on the canopy, we met, I guess it was last week, was it Thursday, I believe it was? Tuesday, Thursday, sometime last week. We met out on site. We have gotten, as you recall, we were waiting on the survey. The survey did come in as scheduled. Doug Gooch got us the survey. Our engineers looked at that, and they laid some things out for you all to consider. I went back and sat down with those revised drawings and sat down with everyone. I sat down with the Mr. Stoll, the principal, as well as your transportation director, and looked at it again one more time, trying to make sure everything was in line with what they needed or wanted to address with that canopy. A couple of things came up. One of the things is how do we want to address the storm? There was a potential that we could put in a completely new storm line. And the reason why I say that, if you look at, if Chris will share the screen, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Might make it a little bit easier for you to see. So just bear with us for just a minute. All right, here we go. All right, thank you so much. Go over here to So this plan, I'm trying not to stand in folks' way, but what we're doing is, in here, the way the storm water works in this building has been in addition to this building. The storm water is basically goes this direction and it goes this direction. All right. That's off the existing building. Part of this ties around to here, and part of this, when it comes this way, I guess it comes around the building. I said that way, but it comes around the building here, and it goes down. And what it's doing right now is it's hitting this storm line and coming out and going back over to a head wall that you can go out on the site and see. All right, when you drive down 27, you can't see it with the weeds and things across the fence, but there is a head wall there. There's another head wall here. Now, all of this storm water goes this direction and ties into this main here as well. So it's sort of split half and half. Our engineer looked at that, and we all know that there's the engineer's method that has all of the safety and allowances built into it, and then there's the real life, will it work or will it not work? These lines, as they are designed and installed right now existing, are right at the limitation of the capacity. However, what that means is that we can put, let me go back over here, trash that. What we can do is we can come in here. An option that we have is to come in here and put a whole new storm line there, because the existing isn't quite adequate. Now that would take care of any potential for any issues. It would alleviate some of that water. Doing that would cost more money than what we had in the budget. We were tying into the existing storm, and that number's probably right around $14,000. I asked my engineer, I said, would you tie into the existing lines? He said yes. He's okay with tying into the existing line and saving the $14,000, but he is concerned about the velocity of this water. If we go here, out, that velocity may be increased, so you might have erosion. What he's recommending is we come into this line and we go out here, and what he's considering is, and Brad and I looked at this, is reworking that area. Right now, if you go out there, when this was built, when you walked out there was riprap that stopped that flow, helped disperse that water and slow the water. That riprap has been covered, it's been mowed over. You can see a little bit here and there. So we would go in there and clean that out. Doing that, the engineers feel it's comfortable that we can tie these into that line and not have to put a new line in down that area. But we wanted to let you know what we're planning to do with that one. Again, trying to save you some money. We're not adding that much flow because all we're picking up are these downspouts. So that's the way we've got it in the design right now. Is there any questions about that? Do you have any other opinion? Or can I clarify anything on the storm? Here's your property line. And that head wall is a ways away. And it's got a natural swell there. So they did that intentionally to keep that from just shooting out over the hill. As you drive by, you see a waterfall over there. Across the fence, Brad and I kind of laughed. You don't see much of this, but what you do see, at some point there's been some concrete kind of dumped over there. There's riprap over there, some scrap concrete pieces. I don't know what the highway department's done, but we've got plenty of riprap down below to slow it. This end does not have that riprap. So that's why we chose this end to go out. So we feel we're very comfortable in that rate of flow. It's such a small amount that's coming off these downspouts. So that will pick all of that up, and then we'll have all new downspouts and boots on the canopy with clean outs on the canopy, as I talked before. And then the downspout boots that are existing up against the building will be replaced and tied in. Not replaced. They'll just be tied in. They're good boots. There's no need to spend money to replace those. Okay? So the next question we had that came up, why are we doing a bus canopy when all of our issues at Camp Vic are related to the camp drop-off? There's an extensive amount, like every other school in the district, every other school in the state. More and more people are dropping their kids off as opposed to riding the buses. What's unique about your building, oh, sorry about that, Chris. I figured it out now. what's unique about your building is that you serve as a hub. Lancaster Elementary is not a hub. And when I say a hub, you've got buses that kids get off that are going to the high school. Parents drop them off, they get on the bus and they go to the high school, middle school. You've got a lot of things going on. Kids, whole families are getting off a bus and then they're separating back out to high school, middle school is my understanding. So you've got more buses here than you have at any of your other facilities when it comes to this hub. This has, right now, you've got 14 buses that are stacking over here. And that's where we've got our bus camp, all right? But the way I understand it is, that's a pretty quick change for getting the students in because they all come off the bus at once and they're all coming in. Where your backup is there's no canopy or protection, and the principal's here, and she probably can tell you how long they're standing out there in the rain trying to get those students out of the cars, because that's a slower process. What I heard you all say, Mr. Stoll, the principal, that's going to increase because of the fact that you've got kids now that have to have temperatures taken, so it may be even take a little bit longer getting them in and out. So the question was, by the new principal, why don't we have a canopy around front? And I said, well, that's more money and we can't afford to do that. So the decision was, okay, we're going to carry the buses and then figure out what to do in the future at some point if you all want to do something different. So I asked my guys, I said, how many buses can we get? Get that again. How many buses, if we've got 14, right there, we've got 14 buses, and that's what you're doing existing here. How many do you have stacking right now? So if you just take it out to the road and you bring them in and you go to double stack, and I don't know if that's really what they're doing right now. You'll have to help me with that, Mr. Stoll. If they're really stacking double all the way out, or if they're stopping, I just don't know. I don't have that answer. But we've got, what we show right here is 57 cars stacked. So the question was, well, what if we flipped it? What if we put the cars to the back to get more cars off the road, get them in quicker to the side? Could we get more stacking done? So on this option, I flipped them. Now, you can see I've got some photos here. We went out, I asked them to verify it. My guys can show one thing, and we all know what we show on paper. Brad will agree with this. What we often show on paper really doesn't work because we don't know how people react and how people really park out there. So they went out and they parked 14 buses in there. In the buses, we can get 14 buses in here. And in fact, what they did was they kind of double stacked back here to a certain distance to eliminate some of these on the end. And they can get 14 in. If you do that, the 14 buses in front get you 85 stacking at the back bus loop that could use the canopy around back, if that's where you want to put that. So that's a decision I can't make for you, but it will work. The only thing that I've asked a testing agent to do is I'm concerned in the old days, some of you may remember, when you built schools, you had a heavy duty lane for the buses and a light duty. We don't do that at our firm. All asphalt's heavy duty, so it doesn't matter where you park a bus or a van, trailer, tractor trailer, you don't have to worry about that. But here, we don't know what this asphalt in this area, if it can handle the load of park buses and buses. So I asked the geotechnical engineer out of Stanford, that's Solid Ground. I don't know if you know those folks or not. They're a testing agency out of there, geotech. They can come in. I asked for a core here, 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 and I asked for one in here because there was some talk about maybe doing something there if the stacking would help go through that parking. And then I just did one for comparison's sake somewhere out there. So I got 5 cores that they can do. That will confirm that you can't put the buses around front if you ever decided to do that and do the unloading in the back to get the stack off of that main road. That's up to you all. Now, to get that done is right around $1,250. They go out and core it. They'll come back and tell me if it's got the capacity of the asphalt. It's not just the asphalt thing, it's the base stone that's underneath there too. You're going to go all the way through that to find out. what we've got, can we handle that load? I don't want to put buses out there that suddenly you start wallowing out the asphalt. You've already got some storm issues. As we talked out on site, you've got some ponding that occurs sort of in this area, in different places, more so right there, and probably over here. I don't want to wallow and make a bigger pond out there. I want to just re-asphalt. You know, if we got to do some touch-up later on, you can do that, but I don't want to wallow that out with buses.
Several years ago, before the 4 lanes was completed, we had a big problem there.
Yep.
Because that was the main drag.
And I learned a long time ago, going out of my subdivision, you get out there quick.
Yep. And so we had the state highway department, you know, on board too. It's been several years ago. So it was called parking. And you take the cars in and you loop them around.
Yeah, what you're talking about is doing sort of a, bring them in here.
Yeah. And that relieves, of course, we had the police came out, you know, back then to help with that traffic, but that alleviated a lot of that.
It will alleviate that, but I think the issue that, what I heard you all say is that the time it takes to get those kids out and escort them under an umbrella back into the building
That's true.
takes a lot longer than it does to unload the bus and get the buses out. That's the dilemma, is where do you want to make that protection? That's what I need, you know, sort of decision. Because what I want to be able to do, we're 95% done with this design. I'm sitting here ready to go at the next board meeting, this coming board meeting, to ask for approval to submit to KD for approval. But if you all decide we want to rethink where this canopy goes, then I've got to redesign and put something out here, because that's where the really need is for the cars. So, you know, I need to kind of move forward, either get the cores to rule out. That's really Mr. Stahl can add to this. The bottom line question is, if we move buses to the front, will it work? If it doesn't work, then they need to be, it's a moot point. You're just still going to have to unload with umbrellas. But if I can get the buses to work in front, then you've kind of said, okay, let her have the choice, the principal have that choice of who she unloads where. And that will take care of it. We talked about a lot of other things. Let me go back to a different drawing. And I'm just throwing these things out because I really don't think we want to go there. You know, there was some discussion. What if we came in and you all wanted to do this? What if we increase this length to get a loop around back and bring a canopy out here? Now you've picked up all of that for cars if you get a loop and stayed out of that playground area around the back piece of the property. Now that's a lot more money because that's more asphalt. And what you all charge me to do is watch out, you know, don't spend more than you need to spend. But if the real problem is getting this, you know, you could do that and have the 2 drop-offs. Cars drop off here and cars drop off here if you wanted to. Get the kids even more. And I think the other part that I can't answer for you is what I was hearing discussed out on site, multiple entrances for the COVID. So you're getting them into the building and you test them at different locations, hit them with a thermometer, the separation and all that. We're not been involved in that. So that would give you a staging area in there and in the gym, kind of separate kids by groups and do some staging, COVID, and other types of things. We're going to do that and start setting that out. Have I covered everything pretty much the way we had discussed? Brad, you were there, so I think I've got it pretty well.
Ms. Lawson, is that your preference? What would you say?
Well, we can unload in the back the buses in about 5 minutes. And the first 4 are double, so there's 8, and those are the ones that go, we have 4 that go to the middle school and 4 that go to the high school. So I was concerned about those that stay out there from 7:25 until about 10 till 8. So either to switch that up or to be able to cover more than just the 4 buses, because we actually have 14 out there at the same time. So I was just trying to cover as many people as I possibly could, because I hate for the awning to go up and it not benefit the most students as possibly can. So.
And you've got the end of the awning is right about the end of the awning is from there to there roughly. and that gets 6 buses double stacked. I think we discussed 4. On the curve, you can't like get an extra one in there and have 8, so you're at 6 double stacked. But is that better for cars or buses? That's where you decide. And it doesn't require a motion, I just kind of need to know where you're leaning so I can get ready for the next board meeting, or I'm going to have to either have a special call board meeting to get you moving, because the bond sale needs to be all one bond sale for all of this. These jobs, splitting them up into multiple bond sales, we'll do the intercom first, or we'll do the intercom and the door package, safety security package as one, we'll do a bond sale for that. That increases your bond sale cost. That doesn't make sense to me. Katie really frowns on touching the bond sales.
If you take and on the one drawing you had, and you bring this, extend it, and loop it down, come around, where you were talking about it's going off speed and have more asphalt. Is there just one unloading area there, or are they going to run into each other, so to speak, in loading areas as they come around and head back out?
If you do what we're talking about here, let's just say we got this. Switch to red. We do the loop. We bring the loop around, however that works. And hopefully we can get it like right through here. We would have a canopy we need to add here for cars. And then this canopy would either get shorter on both ends. Again, I'm watching for the dollars, so you have a shorter canopy there for the bus, for the car drop off. So I'm trying to take, robbing from Peter to pay Paul. I'm going to take a canopy from here, put it over here, pick up, and then shorten this canopy off on this one, so I can stay within your budget. But now we got the added asphalt cost. And I don't know what that does, other than what somebody said was, well, then we can drop a team off here, go out, take a team, drop off here, and then they can merge in. You'd still have somebody helping you out with the merge, or you go to one way, do 2-way traffic right here and let them come right back out and bypass the loop. The only merge you would have, Coach, would be right there. Yeah.
Whatever that may be.
And I think you all know I have to rely on the principal to say, look, they've got it down one place only, drop off would be less confusing. But maximize that one place drop off, whether it's in the front or it's in the back.
You're gonna get some people say, FO, you run child to school, and this is the first time they've been there, so it's
Which
it's
group
not
am I in?
something they can pick up real easy, then you got some confusion going the wrong direction. We don't need any injuries out there.
No.
So the folks that were out there the other day can push back if they think I'm misinterpreting any of that. I think for us, the extra loop was not something that we really spent a lot of time thinking was the best solution for us. We think that the best solution are the 2 loops that we currently have. Those are the simplest ways for us to do it. The question was really, number one, we don't even know if there's a possibility of taking buses around the front. If we have the soft asphalt or the not heavy, I don't know.
That's right, heavy duty asphalt.
If we don't have that, then that's a non-issue. We can't do anything with that. If we have that capability, then Ms. Lawson and her staff could look at what works best. And from her perspective, the other reason that she was bringing up the canopy in the back with the cars is because they do meet the cars every morning. They have a staff who meet the cars, open the doors, and so if they're not under a canopy, they're exposed to the weather as the adults the whole time. Not super exposing for the kids per se, but it does do a lot for the staff when we deal with that. So in the perfect world, you put the canopy exactly where you're putting it, we run the cars through there, and we move buses around front. The way that we make that determination comes down to the core. If you do the core and the core say we can go up front, then we can consider that. If we put core and we can't go up front, then we can't. To me, it's kind of a
good sign.
How soon could they do the core piece?
He said he could get to it within a week, and I tried to push him since he's close by. He probably didn't quicker than that.
And again, somebody can challenge me on this. I don't think that really has anything to do then with the canopy.
That's right.
Because if the core works, then we could switch. If the Corps doesn't, we can't. The Corps just gives us the idea whether we can move that or not. As long as the canopy is gonna go in the back, which is where it's set to go, then that's where the canopy is gonna go. The question that I have too about the canopy, though, that we talked a little bit about the other day, is since the canopy is not gonna be constructed during the summer, it's gonna be a construction that's going on while school is going on. And that would be, for me personally, the more important question to ask is, are we okay with that? So what that would look like, if I remember correctly, Kevin, is there would be a setup of temporary fencing that would go along where the sidewalk is now. So when the buses would drop, you wouldn't drop onto the sidewalk, you drop onto the road area there. The kids would walk on that road area next to the fence and then enter where they are currently. And Kevin had shared with us, in order to do that, they would break the construction of the canopy up into two components. You'd be filling in from both ends toward the middle, but you couldn't put the canopy over where the entry point is right now, because that's where the kids would be entering. So at some point when there was a break, then we would have to schedule the team to come in and connect the canopy at that center point. So to me, that is the bigger question that we have, is moving forward with the canopy. We just have to be aware that this is what we're dealing with this year. And if you're not moving forward with the canopy, then you have to understand that as well. So in a conversation the other day, the idea came up that, and all of this is guesswork. So just understand when I say what I'm about to say, it's just guess. If something were to happen and the state said we could not go to school, we got a whole bunch of time out there where construction can be done and wouldn't impact students at all. But we have no way of knowing. You know, in our perfect world, what we hope for is to go to school all year long. And that being the case, you know, Ms. Lawson, at the time, she was the assistant principal, and had said they absolutely can make it work, whatever we choose to do. So from my perspective, if you all would be okay with the Corps, I would suggest that we do a motion on Thursday regarding that. And if you all are okay with that, then we can find out the answer. That's a pretty good answer to have anyway, to know what we have there. And then the second one would just be, as Kevin was asking, if we're ready to move forward with that, if you want to move forward with it, then he puts all three of those together and did that. Question. You know, sounds logical, we need to leave the space between the two, you know, things going. Have we thought about the possibility of, you go and you buy these little things and put your car under, you know what I'm saying? And put one or two of them out there, and they just pull up there, and then that gives the teachers then some protection. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of a temporary roof, so to speak, for them to come under.
Yeah,
Keep them out of the weather.
let me talk to you about what will happen. What we'll end up doing is I can call for, what you see in green is roughly, we're going to take this lane, that's 2 lanes, we're going to split it to 1 lane. We're going to leave this area here entirely open, just as it is right here. So the way you've been dropping off now will not be changed, other than you do have a small area right there that is out of the weather, away farther than it used to be. Now, I can build what we do is we take 2 highs, basically pressure treated lumber. We build a little shed in concrete. In contract, because we got to cover it. And if we cover it, we need to have some rails, because I have to keep fencing to keep the kids from getting into the construction zone on both sides. So we'll have the fencing in there. Now we'll be calling that out of the contract documents. So I can get you something in here to kind of cover them from that drop-off point to the other. At some point, as Mr. Stoll said, there's going to be a break, a fall break, a summer break, spring break, whatever, Christmas break. They're going to come in here and tear that out and then get that put back, or they're going to bring up the utilities, because what I see them doing is trenching for that storm line here, and they'll put steel plates over that where they cut the hole. So when school's in session, there's steel plates covering it, but the kids can still come and go. So I want to be careful about building a whole lot in that area, because that's probably going to impede the contractor's ability to move in and out and get as much done as possible. So you may have, like you said, there's maybe a little window there that they do have to walk, But it shouldn't be any more than what you're already doing to walk to that entrance is where I'm going. It's minimum for those buses. You know, I had anything there. We could do that protection if you want, it's just added cost. And I agree with you, a little a little canopy structure, you know, Brad can go out and buy a little aluminum thing in the rack, or the contractor can, but I have to put lights on it, and I gotta do a lot of other things. We found it's easier just to build it out of pressure treated lumber, than they put it on a sled and pull it out of the way when they don't need it, and put it back when they need it. They can get in and out. So Mr. Stoll's correct. Really, the decision is, what, from my perspective, are we gonna stay there with the canopy, or are we gonna move? And I'm hearing it can stay, if that's what you all want to do. And that's what we would bring to the board at the next meeting, with a motion to approve construction documents based on that design and move forward. So we can go ahead and get it submitted to Katie and get this thing bid. That's the thing, we waited long enough.
I say get the core sample and see what that turns up.
Okay?
What do you say, Mike?
I would tend to agree, I think everybody.
To me, the core sample is only going to determine whether you're going to have the buses in front of the rack.
That's right.
The canopy stays the same.
Canopy stays the same, stays with the original intent.
Can't get a difference in the answer to either question without forcing. Granted, to that at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to ask for more cores.
I've got 5 cores.
Yeah, but I think we need to focus on that curve there at the corner of the fence, because that bus is gonna put a lot of weight in that turn.
Okay, I can go, you're talking about, let me go back and make sure I've got you on where you're talking about there, Brad. I can take, I've got 5 cores, and I just put 5 in there, but I can do a core. I can do a core dead center here where it's, you're talking about pushing.
At least all 3 corners of that triangle.
I can do all 3 corners right there.
You know, I mean, so take that triangle out there, each corner. So in the corner of the building, down at the end next to the tree, going down in that curve, and then in the curve exiting on the other side. At least those 3, and then probably one in the middle, because we're gonna have bus traffic there too. Somebody will cut through there, or somebody will park the bus
I
there.
don't know what I just did. Thank you, Chris, appreciate that. So we're saying you want 1 here.
I don't want to think we need to hit all areas instead of where there's only a park.
1 here, 1 there, minimum 1 there. I've got 2 more cores.
Parking lot.
Right there, or 1 in the middle of the
I
park?
think that's probably what we said, be the same board all the way up to the sidewalks, probably, yes.
Okay,
But you can do 1 there and then 1 in each parking lot between the cars. I have a feeling we'll get some buses to shoot through there.
okay, because I'm not then coring anything back here. We're assuming, I cored 1 back here, so for comparison's sake, if they come back and they tell me this doesn't look like it's heavy enough, I'd like to have 1 back here. They say, well, it's working now, you know, so, you know, why do you say it's not heavy enough? I don't want to, I want to benchmark. We know that there's not been any failure right there or right here. I'd like to get that core and maybe not do that one. I don't think there'll be any buses in there.
Above that circle. But it may have been water damage up on the front.
Up on this side,
Between those 2 buses.
right between those 2 buses, right here. So I can get, if that's okay, if I can get to 5, I don't want to stretch it to 6 and spend more than I have to. But I like to go 5 and I'll get 1 around back together. I just think it'd be good to have a picture. Say, look, it's the same as what you got in the whole lot.
Don't have a benchmark, then really just testing concrete order in one place. And you don't have to worry about the decision because you haven't tested the concrete and don't know whether it'll work with the same decision. You don't test in both places.
And I think one of the other things too that we talked about that I'm real because we got into a lot of detail that day, because there is going to be a lot of different things that they've got to do. Staging. There we go. We talked about this area right here. Get to move. There we go. What we talked about was that I'm going to put construction staging over here. And that'll be a fenced area. So they've got a place to put the job site trailer, store the materials. We'll put stone down in there. And what I do, I want them to put enough stone down so that later on, if you all want to asphalt that, you might have some parking in the back. Instead of paying to have them put the stone, take the stone back out. Might as well leave it in place. Because we don't have any parking lot for them to work off of. I gotta give them some place to work. Okay? Any questions? All right. Then I'll be back at the board meeting. How soon do you need those agenda items written up for you?
I can get it on the agenda if you get me the items by Thursday.
I can do that. I'll do that. And the board meeting is next,
It's this Thursday.
this Thursday. Also, if I get it to you by Thursday morning, Wednesday night. Got it. All
Are
right.
you gonna have 2 items then?
We'll probably have 3 items. Each one's a different BG. So we'll have a approval of construction documents. And if you want it that simple on your agenda, you can for each of the 3 projects.
Okay. Then you need a 4th one though for the core.
The core, it doesn't require a board motion. That's something you can just, I can tell them to send me a proposal. And we're ready to, unless the board wants an official approval for that. I don't know how you operate on something that small. But I just need to get it going.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Chris, it's all you told me.
Okay. Right, on Thursday's agenda, of course, we'll start like we normally do. Communications, we'll provide you any updates that we have at that point. Opportunity for audience to comment, for you all to comment. We'll make sure that we share with you the new hires and resignations, to the foundation over on that. And then we'll move to the treasurer's report, which is item number 1 in your pink one. And Stacy, if you want to walk them through.
So on your treasurer's report, for the month of June, we are ending at a balance of $4.7 million. And all the funds are detailed below as far as comparisons to the year before. So we're looking at an increase from the prior year of about $568,000. If you flip over onto the next page, we start looking at each fund in detail. So our general fund cash balance is $3.2 million. Year-to-date receipts totaled $16.470. Year-to-date expenditures total $16,536. So that actually, when we look at those numbers, we're ending in a negative at $65,000, but we're still expecting accounts receivable that haven't been posted yet that will bring us down to that negative. Just much compared to the prior year. Our special revenue fund, again, there's a negative cash balance because we're waiting on reimbursements. There is a journal entry that I do at year end to throw that out when I roll, and then I reverse that in July, and we'll get that money in July. Our district activity fund, the cash balance is $153,000, which is comparable to the prior year. Our capital outlay fund, the balance is about $12,000. We received $226,000 from the state, and that was transferred over to the general fund as a general funds transfer. Our building fund cash balance is $390,000. Year-to-date receipts total 2.4, and expenditures total 2.2. And all of this was transferred over to the debt service fund on the debt service payments. Our construction fund, the cash balance is $380,000. Construction fund is $594,000 carried over from the prior year. Year-to-date expenditures total $260,000, and that was for the roofing projects, the security entrance, the Lancaster, and the energy savings project. Our debt service fund is a zero balance. We've been trading And the amount for debt service funds, we paid about $2.3 million in debt service. Our food service balance, $856,000. The beginning balance carried over from the first year is $82,000, and we are still in the process of renovating the GMS kitchen and spending that money now. Our community education fund is $600, which is comparable to the prior year, and our trust fund is about $80,000. Scholarships that are $5,300 were awarded for the year. Do you have any questions on any of the individual funds or on the front sheet? If not, we can put it over to, I think y'all should have a recap. And this is just my projection of how we're going to end this year. I've got us thinking about $3.4 million, which is an increase from last year of $161,000. So, we do have some outstanding purchase orders that are going to carry over into next year, and that totals about $180,000. So if those are liquidated before the year rolls over, that's going to decrease that balance by a little bit. And I just had an outline, we did some salaries increase during 2020 due to our additions. We also saw decreases in other expenses due to school closing for COVID. And then we also saw revenue increases for both the property tax and franchise tax.
Any questions? You don't say, this one, is that just want to have information there?
Which one is that?
Same one.
That is just our historical, the actual comparison where you look back, and I've recapped it on the spreadsheet. It shows our ending balance from 2017 all the way to 2020, and we saw an increase each year.
Okay. Thank you, Stacy. Tab number 2 in pink will be approval of the previous board minutes from June, both the special, or the work session and the regular session. You're still getting your claims on a weekly basis. We'll add the approval for the treasurer's report. Tab 3 is to approve the school's master schedules. We provided you with all of those, and a reminder that all of them are showing at 390 minutes or more, which allows us to do what we're going to ask you to do with the calendar in just a few minutes, or not today, but what we're going to ask you to look at with the calendar for approval on Thursday. So any questions about the bell schedules? All right, let's go to tab number 4. And on Thursday, we'll ask you to approve the reopening of school plan. That consists of 2 options, face-to-face option and the distance learning option. We'll be sharing additional information with the community around each of those options after we share the general information this week. We've shared with the community that we'll have this out by Friday. Assuming you all approve it and let us go forward with this. It will include the information around what social distancing will look like, what mask wearing will look like, and steps that we'll take to try to alleviate that where we can. The hand hygiene, what we're doing with temperature checks. We've given a list of points of contact around face-to-face so that if people have questions, they'll know who to reach out to. Moving forward, you'll see a blank in there from here in middle school. And we hope to hire that position. This is an aside. We hope to hire that position this week, if at all possible. The second model will be the distance learning model, and it will be significantly different from what NTI was. NTI was what we used as everybody else in the state as a stopgap this past spring. But the work that we are doing around distance and the staff is doing around distance will be much more significant. There'll be a higher level of accountability for our staff. There'll be a higher level of accountability for the students, and it will look as much like school can look when you're not doing school in a face-to-face environment. So we'll continue to work toward that. We will ask parents on Friday in a survey to give us an indication of where they think they are at this moment. They think that they're going to send their kid to school, or do they think they're going to keep their child at home? That will not be the final that we'll ask from them. This is just for planning purposes. And we'll follow up in August when we'll ask the parents to actually sign a letter or a document saying, I'm coming to school and I understand what that means, or I'm staying at home and I understand what that means. Because in both situations, it will look different than how school started last year. Make sure that everybody understands that if they're opting for school, that they know what those expectations are, and if they're opting to stay at home, that they understand that. And so saying just a few minutes ago, we want to be clear that if you're choosing to stay at home, this is not a get out of jail free kind of card. It's not you can just hang out and do stuff wherever you want to. There will be specific expectations on a daily basis of what kids will need to be doing. And we will work to accommodate people if there's an issue around the world of technology. But we need them to understand that. We'll also be very clear that this is not an opt-in, opt-out on a daily basis. So if you choose to come to school, we expect you to come to school. And if you wake up late, if you're tardy for school, you don't get to opt to do it from distance that day. If you opt to do it from distance, there will be the expectation that you will stay in that operational situation for an extended period of time. And we will actually have dates around that. When the second 9 weeks begin, we'll be able to consider bringing somebody back in and then somebody after the semester. But we cannot consistently move people in and out when it comes to how we're allocating our staff to take care of this. So once you make a commitment, we'll expect you to hold to that. And then we'll move forward. All of our folks who will be attending school, students, our staff, will also be working to prep for the potential if there was ever going to have to go back to distance for everyone. So there's already prep for that. So even if you've been attending school, we'll be working to make sure you're ready to move into a distance learning environment. That's what you need to do. So part of what we will be doing prior to the start of school is making sure our staff is up to speed and giving them good solid preparation for this. So that is, in a nutshell, what our plan will look like. However, each week following this, we will give significantly more detail to folks so that by the time we're asking them to make this final decision, they have a very clear understanding of what this looks like. That will include what transportation looks like, it will include what food service looks like, and we're still working through that because as you can imagine, if we're splitting here and providing two options, we have to think about how we provide food service in two modes simultaneously. So even when we did this back in the spring, it was only one mode, right? Everybody was from a distance. So we've got pieces that we're still ironing out. That's not to suggest to you that we don't have a pretty good grasp of what that's going to be, but we want to make sure that when we share this information, it's clear. And we also want everybody to understand that what we do is going to be consistent across all of our schools. So if we're saying this is the method that you use at the high school, it's also going to be the method that you use at the middle school, and also the method you use at our three elementary schools. So that there's no doubt from a parent perspective, if they have a child at all three levels, they know what that looks like. And we will even talk about what it looks like as far as timing, because we understand that if you had three children at home and we were asking all three to be online simultaneously, the bandwidth that's being used would be a big problem for everyone. So we will even talk about what that needs to look like from those perspectives. We're thinking it through, and a huge compliment to the staff that I'm working with here because they're trying to find plans from all different sources and merging them together to get the very best plan we possibly can. There are people who are frustrated with us that we haven't put a plan out, but the reason we're being slow is to try to be as precise as we can be and as accurate as we can be so that we're not backing up and making changes down the road. I can't speak for what lies ahead with direction from the governor or anything like that. So I'm not going to sit here today and tell you that we know what that looks like. I'm simply going to tell you that if we have the capability of going to school face to face, we're going to. And if we end up at any point having to do distance for everybody, we're going to be ready to do that as well.
There's always those who are going to sit back like the others. I'm going to see how you're doing. So you're gonna have some say, well, I'm gonna keep my child at home right now, but then they get a scatter report, everything's going pretty good. So is there do they have a time limit they gotta make a decision by, or can they spend like the first 5 weeks home, say, I like to?
So we will set a deadline, and what that deadline will most likely be, it will be attached to like a back-to-school night or a series of back-to-school nights. We don't anticipate being able to offer one back-to-school night, for example, at CDR. There was no way that we could bring everybody together there and be safe in that environment as far as adhering with what the regulations are and what we're being told we have to do. But we'll bring them in, and when we do, that will be the point where we ask them to sign saying, this is what we're committing to. And if they commit to coming to school, we expect them to come to school unless they're sick. And when I say sick, I don't even mean COVID, right? I mean, we expect kids when they're sick to stay at home. But if something happens and somebody needs to then move to the home environment because of an illness, we can take care of that. The folks who choose to stay home will stay at home for a minimum of the first 9 weeks. After that, if they want a petition to come back to school, we'll take a look at what that looks like, and then we'll make one more offer, and that would be at the semester. After that, we're not going to bring somebody back after 3-9 weeks. If they stuck it out that far, then we can go ahead. So again, back to what we were sharing earlier, once you make your decision, your final decision, and that's not Friday, once you make that decision, we expect you to do it for at least that week.
A lot of people are concerned about it, they want to know what it's gonna look like. I told him, like I told you Friday, we're building a airplane, it's on the runway, getting ready to take off. We're playing this by ear, and I just ask people to be patient with us. We'll figure it out. We've never had to do anything like this.
And we're not telling the school it's having to do this figure.
And that's why our folks are looking at everything else that's out there. What is it that we can learn from what somebody else is proposing, and how will that fit in with us? And that's what we want to do. If we can end up with the best plan because we stole a little bit from everybody, we'll be happy with that.
I've had some this weekend that we talked about the teachers. I appreciate the being concerned about teachers, and it's not fair to teachers who have to teach class and do a virtual class. I said, no, I don't think that's how it's gonna work. We'll have a dedicated team.
I'm not excited about the idea of asking a teacher to walk into a room and try to manage 20 kids who are in that room and still pay attention to 6 kids out there. I think that's a loss for all of the kids who are involved. So our plan is to determine based on what our enrollment looks like, how many people we need to set aside and what those people are going to be dedicated to doing that.
Then are we gonna, talking about staff, we're gonna be concerned with the staff, we don't want to come back in this situation. Are we gonna say, okay, which ones are gonna do this, is that not a choice in, or the ones that are having some problems that they could do the ones with the home?
So what our feeling is, what my feeling is, I'm going to place this on everybody else. My feeling is this is, if we're asking kids to come, we have to expect our staff. We can't have 75, 85% of our students show up and have 13% of our staff show. So we've been working closely with our board attorney to make sure that what we're doing falls within the guidelines of everything we need to do in 2 directions. One, taking care of our staff, because that's a responsibility that we have. We do not want to subject them to something that they shouldn't have to be subjected to. But then number 2, holding to the fact that we have a contract that says we can expect you to work. So we're continuing to work through that to make sure. If you look at me and tell me I don't feel comfortable, that's probably not a sufficient reason for you not to be working here. If you can produce a medical reason that's a legitimate medical reason, then we can have a different conversation. But even in that, if there's the capability of having that individual arrive at a different time at the school than everyone else, and have them do their distance instruction from in that room, where no one else is coming in contact with them, we're going to lean in that direction. Because we feel like that gives us the most capability of having them with all of the resources that they would need to provide the instruction for the student, all of the technology that we have available to them. It takes away us having to rely on their Wi-Fi, setups at home, and things of that nature. Now, there will be an exception in everything that we talk about when it comes to this. We will have a staff member who has had medical conditions that's very clear cut, and we may have to work with them and say that the solutions will improve the work from home. And we'll deal with those on an individual basis, and we will try to be as consistent and fair across that as we possibly can. Okay.
I think it's covered it pretty well.
All right. We're good there. We'll move on. Tab 5, we'll be asking you to approve the variable student instructional year calendar. And what that means is we're going to ask you to back up the start of school by 2 weeks. Our start date for students, whether it was virtual or face-to-face, would be August the 26th. And there are multiple reasons for doing that, not the least of which is that it places us on 1,062 hours versus 170 days. So it gives us, excuse me, some latitude there, which is why I stressed earlier that our school schedules have at least 390 minutes in it. The other thing it does is it gives us some time in front of that to work with our staff to make sure they're up to speed on everything that we need to get them up to speed on. So you see some space in for that. It also gives us the ability to continue to have breaks, because one of the things that we noticed during the world of NTI was that there was something called NTI fatigue, because people were worn down by it because they weren't accustomed to dealing with it. So we want to, again, be as normal at school as we possibly can. So right now we leave those in place. And if we need to come back at some point and talk about a change, then we will. But right now, that's what that calendar would look like, and you see that the calendar still gets us out before June. So that will be the request we'll make on that particular piece. Any questions about that? Okay. On number 6, we're going to ask you to approve the Community Work Transition Program, the MOU that goes with it. And if you have questions about that, I'll be happy to try to answer, or when you'll be happy to try to answer for you. She's here tonight as well. And most of you are probably familiar with the program. Tab 7, we'll ask you to approve the Gear Up MOA. Again, I think you're familiar with that. Maria, who is our university that works with us on this, need our approval before they'll release any of the funds. Tab 8, I mentioned this to you all the other day when we were talking in our smaller sessions. We will be asking you to approve what's on the back of that page for you that we will be using, and what we already use is an LPO price formula. And rather than coming in and saying to you each year it's this amount, we're just going to ask you to approve that formula, knowing that we have to comply with that formula. Number 9, we hope on Thursday to be able to share with you information from a bid opening at 10 o'clock that morning. If all things go well, we'll be bringing you a proposal for a school-based healthcare clinic that would allow us to move our current support of students through nurses into an not off-campus, an on-campus, but off-our-books process. So the bid opening for that's at 10 o'clock on Thursday, and we have proposals for you. We'll put those in. What you have in there right now is what the RFP is, so you know what everybody is responding to, and that's the expectation they meet that. And our school attorney, board attorney, has been on board with this. He developed this RFP, so we know that we have his support on this, and we know the contract as well. So if we find someone who meets the requirements of the RFP, then we're able to move forward without any concern from our attorney. Tab 1 on the green is hopefully an approval of our Head Start interagency agreement. We received that on Friday, I believe it was.
It's not finalized.
Right, and it's being reviewed. I forwarded it to our board attorney to make sure there were no concerns from his perspective. Wendy and Stacy went through it to do a comparison of commissioners to last year's to make sure. And there were a few things that were different that they pointed out. So if at all possible, we'll approve this on Thursday, but if something happens, if we cannot, then move it back to the August. Tab 2 is the approval of capital funds request. So Stacey, if there's anything you want to say about that?
After talking to Gary Lee's at KDE, we had originally asked to use the restricted building fund money for our budgeting and what he came back with is we are not allowed to use it directly out of that fund. We would have to do a capital funds request where we would move money from the building fund over to the construction fund. So basically, if we approve this, it's just allowing us to move money to use it.
It's just a process thing. Okay. Number 3, we'll ask you to approve an agreement with RJ Flannery around our Red Book work and support that he does for each of our schools. Tab 4, we'll ask for approval to your minutes from March 19th around order number 164. And Chris, if you're on, if you want to tell them what that change is going to be, I don't have it written in front of me, and you might be able to talk our way through that.
It was simply the way that it was written in the minutes was just the motion was made and passed. The way that it was done during the meeting, which was the way it was supposed to be done, is the motion was made pending KDE approval and attorney approval, which is how that had to be made because it has to go to the state to be approved by them because the amount of money, it's the phone contract is what it is, because the amount of money on that. So that is indeed how the motion was presented and passed, but it didn't make it into the minutes quite right, so we just need to fix that. I don't know if they're going to ask about it or not, but I figured it should be made to look right.
So this is just getting it right, so if there is a question, we've done what we're supposed to do. Tab 5 will be the second reading of the acceptable use policy for district staff. Tab 6 is the acceptable use policy for our students. Tab 7 and Tab 8 were the requests that Mr. Mayor made to you guys relative to transportation jobs and transportation years of experience. Tab 9 is to request approval of our co-op membership with KDC for this year. Tab 10 will be our requests. They're not there now, but we will do the amendment, or I'll make the adjustment to this before we post it. And that'll be where you'll have the opportunity to address the BGs for the 3 projects that Kevin was mentioning earlier. And then we will have the second reading on all the KSBA board policies. And then that will take us through the remainder of the night. One thing I'd like to do, if possible, is as we're wrapping this one up, is there was a piece that Kevin was going to share with you under his piece, and we got so wrapped up in the other, we kind of both forgot about that. So if we can temporarily go back and let him address that piece. He had already shared with me today that he was going to, that we were going to have this conversation, so we just want to make sure you get this.
A few months back, you all may recall, we were upstairs meeting back before the COVID. We were meeting, we were talking about, you all had asked me to look at bus garage costs and look at the project potentially at the high school. And one of the things that came up there was someone had mentioned, the DFP. Your DFP was completed in 2015, in June 2015. And somebody said, when are we going to do a new DFP? Well, you got to reconvene the LPC. But before you can get to that point, we have to have, or the district has to have, per KDE, the K-fix. Years ago, you may recall that the architects came in and they did an audit or an evaluation or sort of an inventory of what your buildings were in condition. And then they came back and gave you a cost of all of this. because of the various districts were ranking things differently depending upon where you were in the state and so forth. The state came back, and you may remember something called a Parsons report. Category 5 was a big thing. Everybody wanted their schools to be a Category 5. They've done away with categories now. Parsons report came out and they evaluated what was all originally called the old 4s and 5s to see if they were really 4s and 5s. Had a huge book, paid a bunch of money to get this done. KDE now has heard the legislators again several years ago. They started working on K-Fix. And it is an automated program that they wanted the districts to go in and evaluate the buildings based upon this software. The software was developed by Amoresco, building management company. They do a lot of energy contracts and that sort of thing. They submitted for it. KDE hired them, paid them a bunch of money. They came up with a software that KDE is using. Brad and I and every other facility director and every other architect and architectural firm in the state has gone through the training. And there are districts that have been doing this. I originally wrote a proposal quite some time, talked with Sonny about it. Sonny said, let's just wait. You've got a superintendent on board. I went back, drew that proposal back out. And what our proposal is basically to go in on an hourly rate, not to exceed. We've done enough of these now that we can go in and do those, and we know what it takes to look at these buildings on a time basis. We do an hourly rate not to exceed. If we get it done cheaper, we do. It includes the consultant's fees. But what we do for you is we will discount that off of your DFP, because we still have to be involved in the DFP. The audit would have been part of the DFP, but it's much more involved now. So you got to get the K-Fix done before you can do the DFP, is where we're going with it. So if you all want to do that and move forward, I know Brad originally went to the training, felt like he was going to be able to do that, and the previous superintendent before Sonny thought Brad was going to be able to handle that, and I think Brad's seen these people pulling their hair out. We've been pulling our hair out. It's a very complicated system. Not that he can't do it, but they've asked me, to take a look at it and what would it be to take it over and go through it. It's a lot. We got to go into every room, photograph it. We've got 5 to 6 audits we got to do on every building. Everything from the HVAC down to whether or not you got security and door hardware that's actually a part of it. We do SEPTED, which SEPTED is crime prevention through environmental design. There's a form we got to do on every single building that way as well. So Mr. Stoll has that proposal. If that's something you want to all consider, if you move forward with anything, let us know. We'd be happy to help you and get you. We'll take that cost off of the future DFP. So you're not paying for it twice.
So we won't have it on this agenda this week, but I'll make sure that you have a chance to see it at a future board session so that you can see what the proposal is and what that amount is and what that looks like. Brad, if you have any comments that you want to make about it, the complexity of it or the ease of it, however you want to look at it.
It's a lot. It is a lot. In the training that I went to, we had architects in the same room, and they were explaining to the Amoresco group how difficult it was for them to do that. And I added a few points in a few buildings, but it is very time consuming. It's very time consuming. You got to go to every room. You got to take pictures. You have to get on the internet, enter it on the internet, plus you have an app on your phone. So you're doing a lot of different things. It's going to be a lot of work.
The goal of KDE is basically once it's entered, the system's there just to update for everybody from there forward. So it's the initial onset of this that's taking so much time.
Yeah, and
basically, it was a mandate without funding.
There's been a lot of changes, I think, from when it first came out.
Yes, and they're still making changes.
So it's hard to keep up, especially when you don't have time.
So we don't need to tie you up.
Oh, yeah, it takes a lot of time.
So we gotta do all that before we even think about building the bus garage.
Unless that is on your DFP already. The problem I've got another district right now that asked for a waiver. Their DFP was done in 2015. They wanted a waiver, and Katie said, we're not going to give you another waiver until you get it done. They're sort of holding, they want everybody to be in the system. And the legislators are using it to determine funding. Every district that we've done this in, the need's gone up. And because it's no longer our numbers of the cost that we think it's going to be necessary, it's KDE's numbers through Amoresco. So they're still playing with the numbers And everybody's needs going up based upon the new numbers so far. that we've seen.
Let's just keep the gym, possibilities of building a high school gym in the picture.
What this does is the K-Fix just tells you your existing conditions. Once you get that and you convene your LPC, what we do in that role is we come back and we'll create a summary that looks out 4 years. For KD, they only want you to look out what the needs are for 4 years from now. Then you can make your decisions of what you want to do as an LPC. And then the board can approve the plan and make that part of the DFP once it's created. So it's a process. So yes, if a district decides they want to build a new gym, they can put it in there and put it in their priority where they want to put it. KD will review it, see if it makes sense to them. They may say things come up higher as a higher priority. Security now is a category 1 priority or section 1 priority. Everything security, everything related to codes, they're trying to move some of that up above to get those knocked out. But yes, you can put that in there as you all see fit, as your LPC recommends.
I think the bottom line is that odds are we can't do anything until we have the K-Fix in place, since you're hearing him say that there's been a request for a waiver on a time frame similar to ours. So, like I said, we won't do it this week, but in the August one, I'll let you see the proposal from Kevin's team, and then you can make a decision if that's the way you can go.
Now, I want to make sure I don't want to be unclear. If your current DFP has a bus garage and those things on it, there's the potential that they would approve that. This district was trying to, they just wanted to get a waiver and didn't even tell them what they were wanting to do. And they still said, no waiver. You got to come and do it now.
Well, we asked for, best of my recollection, our GFP was due this year.
Mhm.
We asked for a waiver for that specific reason, that to try to increase the funds. And as far as I remember, there hadn't been any action taken on it. So
Yeah, I haven't
the
heard
waiver's
anything.
only good for a year. And that would throw it to the upcoming year for us to get that done. Or we'll be out of compliance because we already have a 4 years plus the waiver year. Is that pretty much how you understood it, Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir.
I think that's what we did, because I think maybe you and I commented on the fact that we didn't want to get hung in the same position we were 5 years ago and had to sit down and just have several meetings to get it done, because the superintendent at the time just discovered that we were in that position 5 years ago, and brought it to our attention that we were in the last year and we had to do something. So it seems as though there we were then and here we are now, and we're in the same position, only it's compounded because we have to have additional things done before we can even do that. So that might be something that needs to be checked into, is my feelings. I need to check on that and see what the timeline is going to be for us to get this done. That'll have a whole lot of influence with me as far as what we do and how quickly we start it.
If you want, I can contact the reviewer and say, okay, when does it expire? There's several state board meetings that they approve these at. Basically, you have to have it in and complete 45 days prior to that board meeting date. And that means KE needs it a little bit earlier. KE wants their time, and then they got to wait and get, so it's a little bit of a, like you said, it can stretch out. So now's really the time you want to think about at least what you want to do. But I'll call them and I'll copy you on my correspondence with them, so you'll be aware to share that with the board. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I think
You get the tough one now.
we're down to the blue area on our book, and
Yeah, that's just the second reading of the KSBA policy. Once you do that, we're
that
done.
first page is really important to us, because it gives us hiring service training, which I haven't heard a whole lot about. Have you, Brother Jared?
About
About how they're going to conduct a lot of stuff and
Oh,
As far as
that,
training area.
So far, it's all online, right?
so
now.
far it is online.
I did Saturday online.
I've got all the hours I need.
Well, I have too, but I mean, I just, there's some areas in the Academy of Studies. Seems like it's awful skimpy from what I've seen from KSBA. They're only, you know, the Academy of Studies only have a couple of things thrown in. It seems like I have a lot of, doesn't give us a lot of opportunities to go back and get things that, because of the years you've had, hours you had to get previously, you didn't have as much leeway in those, and you had to pass some to take what you were mandatory. So you try to go back and they don't offer them as often as you would think. So I've got a lot of hours in
Well, I had that problem.
2, 3, and 4, and I like 1.
Well, I had that problem getting level 5 hours.
Yeah.
With
Well, I've got
level 5, which I
I've
finally
got
did.
level 5 hours and don't have 3, 4, and level 2.
Did you all, while we're on the subject, did you all, answer Kerry Shelling's, survey?
Yes,
Get
on the,
on the
regional meeting,
the regional meeting?
I did.
Did you?
I didn't fill it out or anything.
Yeah.
I saw it.
You know, we would be willing to come an hour early, and stuff like that. Is this still gonna be in Mercer County?
Yes, no, it's in, yes, it is, I think it is. I'm pretty sure it's either Mercer or Anderson, and I'll have to go back and look.
That's all right.
I'll be willing to do whatever necessary.
Or you can get some extra hours and if you have to, 12.
I think you can get what, an hour and 15 minutes worth for the meeting, and then an extra hour if you go in early. So there's been a time or two that's coming in really handy.
Whether or not to have a buffet or
Well,
box lunch.
true. Has that concluded everything you have to bring up?
It is. I was just trying to look that up for you real quick, and I don't see where it says. It just says that your regional chair is from Anderson County.
They'd be Anderson County.
I would assume.
It would most likely be Anderson, because we've had it at Mercer County for the last 3 years.
And before that, it was in Anderson County.
Yes. Well, I think that brings us to the point on the agenda that we'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Kirk, second by Brother Jerry. All in favor? All were in favor.
Thank you very much.
See ya, Hurricane.
Everybody survived me running the